Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Natalie. Good to see you.
Hi, thank you so much for joining this morning for this office hours and Ask Me Anything session. It's really nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I like to start just by talking to somebody who's a practicing bioengineer and hearing a little bit about like what they're doing now and how they got interested in the work. Uh, you and I are connected through sort of MIT and common department, but could you say like where you are now and what you're doing right now?
Totally. Yep. And thanks for having me on. Thanks for the BioBuilder program. I'm currently a PhD student at MIT. I should say I'm Brook Huisman. I'm just started my 4th year
Yes.
at MIT BE.
That's great. Yes, BE, biological engineering. Thank
Yes.
you. And I'm
Yes.
sorry,
Thank you.
I keep forget. Like I know you, so I
Oh,
didn't think I'd have to introduce you, right? So
sure, sure.
I'm not a polished interviewer, which is
No, no, no.
so
I
anyway.
love the Zoom feature. Everyone has their name
Has
tag.
their name. That is true. Yep. So you are a 4th year student, right? So it's the 4th year of a how many year program, or do I should that not be a question?
No, no, it's a good question. It's for the BE, the biological engineering program at MIT, we average about 5.5 years to finish the whole program. So I'll probably be here another, let's say, year or maybe 2 years.
Given
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
that's happening. Yes,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. That sounds right. Because I'm not sure everybody who might listen to our conversation is aware of just like what a PhD program involves, right? So,
for sure.
so you started a few years ago, and what did your first couple of years look like, and what do your years now look like?
Yeah, good question. So upon starting the program, you have some coursework to sort of help launch you into your PhD. So I took about 2 classes every semester for the first 3 semesters. And in my 4th semester, I was a teaching assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And then during that first semester, we're really looking at different labs and looking at different professors who could potentially be our thesis advisors. So I did 4 different rotations and met with students and did some like small projects. And then by like December of my first year, I had joined a lab. And then everything from there is really just focused on pushing the frontiers of science forward, which I think is fascinating. It's so exciting.
It,
Um,
it,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's hard, but it's really wonderful and exciting. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
tell me which lab you landed in and maybe how you decided and what your project is.
Yeah, totally. I'm in the lab of Michael Birnbaum. So he's a younger professor at MIT. He's been at MIT for about 6 years or so. And so there were a couple of features that attracted me to joining his lab. One was the type of science and the type of questions that they were asking, and they really weren't afraid to go after really big questions, but like really pursue the big challenges. And they focus on immunology and immune engineering, and they specifically focus on a type of immune cell called T cells. It's sort of the big picture way that I like to think about this type of immunology is how do immune cells know if something is wrong inside of a cell? So like you have a cell, it it has its cell membrane. Is it cancer? Is it healthy? Is it virally infected? How does the immune system discern if it's healthy or not? And there's this class of proteins. They're the name is called major histocompatibility complexes, or MHCs, and they're actually in the closest analogy I think is like a hot dog bun. So these are like this hot dog bun on the surface of cells, and then different pieces of proteins that are broken down into peptide fragments from inside of that cell is actually displayed on the surface of the cell, sort of the hot dog in the hot dog bun analogy.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's like pieces from inside the cell that are on the outside of the cell, and then T cells, type of immune cell, can come around and check and say, I recognize that, I don't recognize that.
Mhm.
So that's sort of the area that we're in.
It could not be more relevant or more like what is on everybody's mind right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
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 clearly we are all wishing you great success in your
thank
discoveries
you,
and in your work. So, so
thank you,
that's
I
pretty
appreciate
great.
it.
So then what does a sort of typical day, well, I know now is not a typical day, but what
Yeah,
would sort of your work as a graduate student look like on a day-to-day basis?
yeah, totally. I have my day is kind of shaped by the type of projects that I have. So I do a mix of computational work and experimental work. So these days, I try to. I'm in the afternoon shift in the lab, so we split into two shifts to keep density down. But I'll typically work on some like data analysis, model design, that kind of thing at in the mornings when I'm just working from home. And then in the afternoons, I head into lab and do bench science, do experimental work.
Yeah.
One of the techniques that we use a lot is a technology called yeast surface display. So we actually engineer these yeast to display immune proteins on their surface, and so we can profile them and study these proteins in a really high throughput manner.
I am a yeast geneticist. I love yeast as a
Awesome,
system. I think they are
awesome.
so powerful, and it is
Yeah,
amazing. Yeast surface display is just an incredible way to study, yeah, presentation of
totally.
things onto the surfaces. There, it's been used in some BioBuilder projects too, like
Cool,
for
cool, cool.
presenting like antigens to allergy responses and things like that. So yeah, it's really what a great system to be working
Yeah.
in. It's very powerful genetically and tractable right in the lab and modelable. So, wow, what an awesome set of experiments. Now, I want to back up just a little bit because I am sure people would be interested in your path to such an important project and such interesting work. So, do you want to maybe back up to like where did you grow up and where did you go to school and when did you know you were interested in science and stuff like that?
Sure, for sure. Uh, I am originally from Michigan, and I went to University of Michigan for my undergrad, and I studied biomedical engineering there. Growing up, I would say I had broad interests. I was interested in a lot of things, but I think my goal for a really long time that I thought I was the path I was going down was doing clinical medicine, so going to medical school and becoming a doctor. What was the pivot point for me was during undergrad, during my first semester, I joined a research lab at Michigan. And then I was with that lab for 4 years. So working on a project in a research lab really was what changed my mind and directed me more towards a research path.
Mhm.
Uh, I love the idea that you can discover something or develop something in research that can really push our understanding as humans. I guess just push
Right.
our boundaries forward. And in developing or discovering something, that's something that could have um, watershed effects, just affect clinical medicine in a lot of ways as
Mhm.
well. So
Yep.
that's what shifted me to
That's so
pursue a
great.
PhD.
It is incredible to feel like there's this moment where you're like, I'm the only person on the planet that knows this, right? You're like,
For
I'm looking at this
sure.
data and like,
Yeah.
I know this and nobody else knows this on the
Yeah.
planet. And
Yeah.
I think it's so exciting, right? So
Right. Right.
it's
Yeah.
really thrilling. Like it's amazing how um, uh, sort of thrilling science can be. I mean, it is also not thrilling every day. I don't want to oversell it. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that doesn't work. There's a lot
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
slog to science, but I think that lift of the moment, the discovery, the chance to like uncover something that hasn't been uncovered before is just it's a great way to spend time, right? Even if it's not going
Totally.
well, to know that you're on that path. So
Mhm.
that's really cool. So so what did did you say what you studied in college? You were
Yeah. Biomedical
a
engineering.
biomedical engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was an engineering degree or a science degree there?
It was engineering.
It was in the School of Engineering.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
It was more, I would say more macroscopic focus, so more like device, like orthotics, these kind of things,
Yep.
prosthetics.
Yep.
Yeah, but,
Yep.
yeah.
So
But
yeah, I mean, I think like you, I think many people go to college with, a worldview that includes, people they know who are doctors and people they know who are teachers and people they know who have certain jobs. And then, biomedical engineers, not a lot of people know biomedical engineers necessarily. And so it doesn't always sort of come to the top of people's plans, but yeah, when you find the right track, that's really great. So so fantastic. You are doing great things, but part of why I know you is because you have also been a leader within BioBuilder and done some teaching with BioBuilder in our organization. Do you want to say anything about, why you teach or what you like about teaching, or things that you want to share about that?
Yeah, totally. I'm really drawn to like the academic sphere because of this melding of, discovery and research, but also of teaching and discovery through just learning from people in the field. So I really enjoy working with students and working and like mentoring students in programs like BioBuilder, in the classroom, I guess when we're in person in the classroom, and then also mentoring in the research lab. I think it's both really rewarding to see someone's trajectory, but also to know that you're kind of helping influence another generation of scientists.
Yeah.
As an anecdote, during my second year of, my first year, second semester of my PhD, so I'm really just getting my bearings in the lab. There was a really interested undergraduate who my professor paired me with, and so she joined me in working in the lab, and I learned a lot alongside her while mentoring her, and now she's off. She's just started her PhD at Harvard in their systems biology program. So it's fantastic to see the full circle.
It is just wonderful. I totally agree. We take so much, it just lifts your heart to think about all the folks that are going on to do great things in addition, right? That you've had the chance to intersect with, and yeah. It is such a joy. It is absolutely a joy. Yeah. And I think it raises an interesting point, which I'm not sure is obvious from the outside, but that is that we all help each other. Like nobody gets through this just completely independently as, a island unto themselves without really working in partnership, really, hand in hand with a lot of people. And they're not always more senior to you, right? Like that student was an undergraduate, but you were both, in this lab and you were working together. I know a lot of labs I've been in, the first person I go to with a question is the technician, the one who's been there for like 20 years. They know exactly where things are or how to order something or which reagent works better or anything like that. Like they are the source of information, the research technician in the lab. So yep, that sounds great. So is there anything that, you kind of wish you knew before that you know now, or something that, you might take away as a important point that got you to where you are?
Yes. Yeah. I have a more deep answer, I guess, but one thing that I didn't know necessarily at the beginning of grad school or at the beginning of undergrad, and I think is a well-kept secret, but I don't think it should be, is that if you're considering a PhD, know that you're actually funded for it. So you're not going into debt pursuing a PhD.
Yes.
So that makes it really possible, feasible for a lot of people to pursue.
Yes.
So
important.
Yeah.
I don't know why we keep it a secret. So yeah, anybody who's thinking of studying science for a PhD, know that your education is paid for by our government. We have training grants that are intended to bring our next generation of scientists and engineers online. So yeah, it's an important thing. Yeah.
So true. And then I guess the second part of my answer would be know that failure is expected. Mm-hmm. And if you're failing in a rigorous and robust way, so not because you accidentally contaminated something, which happens, but if you're doing rigorous science and not getting, an answer or things are failing, know that that's okay and expected. My professor's actually grad school advisor used to say, if you're not failing at least, he's like 50% of the time, you're pursuing a question that's too easy. So I kind of took that to heart, that it's it's a good thing. It's an expected thing. Don't be discouraged when things
Yeah.
don't work.
Yeah, what a great lesson. It's so very true. And I think that, again, we're talking about sort of why are we keeping these things as well kept secrets, right? But
Mhm.
the notion that it is expected to fail and to be learning from your failed experiments or your unproductive days, right? And in order to make the next day better and to get closer to the answer and to the discovery that you're working on, it's absolutely true. It's part of the beauty of science, right? Is that you can look at the data and you're like, oh, well, that didn't work, and now I wish I had known X, Y, or Z, so now I have to set up another experiment to know X, Y, or Z, and then maybe I'll get back to this important one. So yeah, it's such an important lesson. And it's hard. It's hard when come graduate school, there are days and days and days where things just aren't working out, but it's
So true. So true.
it is the part of it that I think is it's necessary, and I think it takes a lot of courage. So
Mhm.
yeah, so yay you on your graduate career. You're gonna make a
Mhm.
wonderful PhD discovering great stuff where
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
think it's a wonderful project you're on, a very obviously relevant and important one. I'm glad you're combining the computational tools and the bench tools. And I'm also just very glad you're a part of the BioBuilder community for us. So thank
So
you.
much.
Thanks for all of
Thank
it.
you.
I am keeping an eye on the participants list, and I do not
Mm.
see people in for additional questions of you. So I will give you back your time this morning to finish your work. And yeah, and thank you again for getting a chance to chat with us. And we'll post this conversation so people can watch it in the time that suits them. So
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Dr.
thank
Caldell, and
you. All
thanks for the
right.
program.